Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea reports more than 600 cases of COVID-19, prompting the city of Seoul to announce new measures to start on Saturday, under which most stores will have to close at night. Despite the rise in cases, South Korea's main stock index rises about 1.33% to close for the first time above 2,700 points on apparent optimism about COVID-19 vaccines. And the country posts a current account surplus for the month of October, the biggest one in around 3 years and a massive increase from a year earlier. Both imports and exports, however, were down. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea on Friday reported more than 600 cases of COVID-19 for the first time since March. Just announced this afternoon, new distancing measures will take effect from Saturday in Seoul, under which most customer-facing businesses, including movie theaters, hair salons, department stores, large grocery stores, and others will have to close after 9 p.m. Choi Won-jong reports.
South Korea saw 629 COVID-19 cases on Friday, the highest figure in nearly 9 months. Of those new cases, 600 were local infections and 29 were from overseas. This takes the total number of cases to more than 36,000. There were 7 additional deaths, bringing the death toll to 536. Despite the tougher social distancing measures in place in the capital area, health authorities reported a record high in Seoul with 295 cases. And there were 160 in Gyeonggi-do province. Outside the capital area, local governments are also concerned over rising infections. During a meeting on Friday in Gyeongsangnam-do province, Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun said the virus spread outside the capital area has not been slowing down. He added that the cases in the capital area are continuing to rise, even though level 2 social distancing measures have been in place for more than 10 days. The health authorities will monitor the situation over this weekend and decide whether to impose additional prevention guidelines on Sunday. Choi Won-jong, Arirang News.
The U.S. drug maker Moderna says it expects to have 100 million to 125 million doses of its COVID-19 vaccine available by the first quarter of next year. This will be mainly for Americans, but also a significant number for people around the world. Meanwhile, Pfizer had planned to ship 100 million by the end of the year, but now says it'll only be able to send out around 50 million because of supply chain issues. Kim Jae-hee reports.
Moderna says it expects to have 100 million to 125 million doses of its COVID-19 vaccine available across the globe in the first quarter of 2021. According to Reuters, the company said on Thursday that 85 million to 100 million of doses will be available in the U.S. and 15 million to 25 million will be sent to other countries around the world. The vaccine requires 2 doses given 1 month apart. But another U.S. drug maker, Pfizer, has cut in half its production target for vaccine doses for this year. Pfizer had originally planned to ship 100 million vaccine doses this year, but the company now says it anticipates producing just 50 million. This is due to challenges in supply chain for the raw materials used in its vaccine. The company said the scale-up of the raw material supply chain took longer than originally anticipated, and later than expected results from its clinical trial caused the company to lower its target. But the company said its full-scale production lines in the U.S. and Europe are complete, and it's confident it'll be able to supply the targeted doses. The company is expected to roll out 1.3 billion doses in 2021. Its vaccines require 2 doses given 3 weeks apart. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
In other news, President Moon Jae-in on Friday nominated 4 new government ministers in his latest cabinet shakeup. 3-term lawmaker Jeon Hae-chul of the ruling party was nominated as Minister for Interior and Safety. Based on his legislative experience, the Blue House said Jeon is expected to contribute to the government's goal of achieving balanced regional growth and boosting its management of disasters. To lead the Ministry of Land and Transport, Moon nominated Byun Chang-hum, the current head of the Korea Land and Housing Corporation. The Blue House said Byun is expected to be able to address housing issues and come up with realistic policies. For Minister of Health and Welfare, the president has nominated Kwon Duk-chul, current head of the Korea Health Industry Development Institute. And for Minister of Gender Equality and Family, Moon named Jung Myung-ae, head of the Korea Foundation for Women. The nominees will undergo confirmation hearings at the National Assembly before being appointed. South Korean stocks have risen to new all-time highs. The KOSPI closing above 2,700 points for the first time. During the session, it also hit a new intraday high. Investors were apparently optimistic about the vaccines due to be rolled out in the U.S. and other countries. Our Min Soo-kyun reports.
The benchmark KOSPI on Friday ended an all-time high, up more than 1.3% to close at 2,731. The index at one point reached as high as 2,742, marking a historic intraday high. South Korea's main bourse has logged new highs every day since the start of December, backed by strong foreign buying. Investors are optimistic about the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, which will reportedly start in the coming weeks and months. Foreign investors bought over 766 billion worth of Korean stocks in hopes that Asia's fourth largest economy will benefit from vaccine development. The strengthening local currency also contributed to foreign buying. The Korean won closed at 1,082 against the US dollar, up 14.9 from the day before.
The Korean won is strong overall on an increase in demand for non-contact products and services, improvements in exports such as semiconductors, and improvements in the free trade environment.
The tech-heavy Kosdaq also closed higher at almost 914, 0.68% from the previous session. Market watchers and investors are keeping a close eye on whether the market can continue its momentum throughout the end of the year. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
And turning to trade, South Korea posted its biggest current account surplus in about 3 years in October. According to the Bank of Korea, October's surplus came to almost $11.7 billion US dollars, an increase of 49% on year. This was the 6th month in a row it's been in the black and the second that it's been higher than $10 billion. But in the pandemic, both exports and imports were down, exports by 3.8% compared to last year and imports by 5.6%. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Friday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time today.
Good afternoon.
Well, there have been growing expectations that we'll see some new stimulus from the U.S. Congress. Mixed news on the vaccine front, though. So on Wall Street, the Dow and the Nasdaq both up, but the S&P a little lower. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, at the beginning of the market, most of the indices were quite strong, pretty much on the basis that the vaccine news are coming through. However, though, the mixed signals are coming as the U.S. market closed. As you said, the Dow Jones added by only 0.3% and Nasdaq gained by only 0.2%, while the S&P it's down by about 0.1%. Pretty much the Wall Street closed mixed on Thursday because it basically cut the earlier gains after Dow Jones reported Pfizer is cutting its coronavirus vaccine rollout plan for this year due to the supply chain issues. Pfizer now expects to ship half of the doses that it had previously planned after finding that raw materials in early production, it did not meet its standard. On the policy side, the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell spoke as Congress works to strike an ideal deal and avoid the government shutdown. And that they're pretty hopeful that this will actually go through, and that should be positive signals and relieving some of the stresses we're seeing in the market. But nevertheless, still they're kind of cautious because these kind of news has been coming through in the past several weeks, and really nothing has actually done. So in any case, market has been very strong in the last several weeks, and then that. We needed some kind of breathing time for the time being, and it seems that the U.S. market actually took that yesterday. However, if you look at the futures market, U.S., all the indices are up anywhere between 0.3% to 0.5%. So overall liquidity condition and situation seems to be still in favor of equity market trend.
And today in Korea, the main index closed for the first time above 2,700. Strong buying by foreign investors yet again. What happened today in the local markets?
Right. As you said, the Korean market seems to be very strong, and it seems actually one of the strongest amongst all the other indices in the world. And that today it added another 1.3% for the KOSPI and about 0.7% for the KOSDAQ. Clearly now KOSPI is breaking its benchmark record highs, and it seems to be doing that continuously. As you said, the foreign investors are coming back. On one day, because of the MSCI adjustment, they did sell about 2.4 trillion won worth of Korean equities, but in the past 2 days, they're coming back quite aggressively. If you look at the foreign net buying of KOSPI, it was about 763 billion. KOSDAQ was about 41.8 billion. All in all, net purchase of about 800 billion won worth of Korean equities. Clearly, the positive implication is that there's some of the news about pharmaceutical side that the vaccine will come through. Also, the possibility of economic recovery where the export numbers are turning positive, even though there's all concern about the export and the global economic growth rate. Nevertheless, Korea seems to be quite well in that next year's economic growth rate should be coming back, and that Korea is relatively better in a position, particularly if you look at the sector-wise, how strong it seems in terms of the which sectors. Clearly, the semiconductor and semiconductor equipment sector is they're doing the best out of all the sectors that we're seeing. And obviously, Korea, the electronic sector is about 40% plus of the overall KOSPI, and Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix are one of the largest stocks in Korea, and that these stocks are moving somewhere around 2.6% today for Samsung. SK Hynix is up about 3.14%. So clearly, everybody seems to be saying that the semiconductor business is going to show a very strong jump in the first quarter of next year, maybe leading into the second quarter as well.
The oil-producing countries of OPEC and Russia have agreed to increase production in the new year, not by a lot, but the price of oil continues to climb. Tell us about oil and what you make of these moves by OPEC.
Yes, as you said, oil prices are very strong. The crude oil, WTI, is up about 1.9% right now. Brent oil is up about 2.07%. Now the WTI is hitting about $46.5 per barrel. And I've been saying that the oil price will have some more room to go up. How far? Maybe up to over $50 per barrel. Basis on the trend that we've been seeing in the recent. Obviously, why is it going up? There's a supply adjustment that's expected. If you look at the OPEC's agreement, they decided to cut output by about 7.2 million from January, which is much higher than expectation of 5.7 million. So clearly, this kind of move is actually affecting positively in terms of supply and demand side. However, if you really think about on a longer-term basis, as we've been saying, the shale gas additional production and also the shift from the gasoline-based car to electric-based cars, we think that the demand is not going to be as strong as before. If that's the case, on the basis of supply and demand, most likely the band of overall price range of the oil will be somewhere between $40 to $50 rather than a previous peak was about $70 plus. We don't think that we'll reach that kind of level in the future. Most likely the one level leg down will happen, and that if the oil price continues to move up, it might go up to as high as $50 per barrel, but it's not going to be anything bigger or anything more stronger than what we're expecting. So all in all, we think that this will have some implication for the inflationary numbers, and that we will continue to see ample liquidity in the system, and oil price is not going to be the one element that where we need to buy aggressively. Rather, we need to focus on equity right now.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, we'll have to leave it there for this week. Thanks so much for coming on. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. You too.
South Korea and Vietnam have agreed to establish a fast-track entry system for business travelers starting New Year's Day. The agreement was reached on Friday in Hanoi by South Korea's second Vice Foreign Minister Lee Tae-ho and the Vietnamese Foreign Minister Pham Binh Minh. Business travelers going to Vietnam for less than 2 weeks will be exempt from the country's mandatory 14-day self-isolation period. Travelers should, however, test negative for COVID-19 and submit certain documents about their trip. Foreigners have been banned from entering Vietnam since March, but the country's granted waivers to admit some 17,000 South Koreans. South Korea has established bilateral fast-track entry systems with 5 other countries, including China, Japan, and Singapore. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.